We'll move now to a public hearing. Item 17. Mr. Clerk.
Yes. This is the time and place for the public hearing on modification to City Council approval of conditional use permit number 6222 and associated mitigated negative declaration for the Arroyo Seco Canyon Project. On July 10, 2017, the public hearing notice was published in the Pasadena Star-News. No correspondence was received by the City Clerk's office regarding this item.
Thank you. Mr. Bawa, are you going to introduce this?
Yeah, I'll do the introduction. This is another complicated project, water project that we have, and its history goes back to 2005. This project was originally conceptualized as a Haamanga Basin multiple use project, has evolved over a period of time. The agenda report's scope today is really narrow, and that's why there's not a whole lot of information with respect to the background of this or the history of this project in the agenda report. The scope is really narrow with respect to when the City Council approved the initial study and mitigated negative deck, which is a CEQA process in June of 2015. Soon after that, in July, there were two petitioners who got together and filed a lawsuit against the city's decision. Court issued the judgment last month, and while they held majority of the components of the mitigated negative deck valid, they did invalidated some of the components of this project, which were really actually heart of the project and mainly related to how much water could be diverted to the percolation dams, percolation ponds, and how much water should be diverted to maintain the habitat in that area. So to fulfill the legal requirement, and Teresa Fuentes is here from the City Attorney's Office who can give you the legal language about it, but in general, what it means is that the judge has issued the judgment and the City Council needs to recognize, according to the law, and rescind the parts of the initial study and mitigated negative deck that were found to be inadequately analyzed in the study. I need to point out a little bit here about the contribution that the Arroyo Seco Foundation has made to this project. So they were the foundation group of people who conceptualized this project in a bigger form, in a different form, in 2005. As I've gone along and I've learned a little bit about the history of this project, and Mr. Tim Brick is here today from that foundation. LA County is the agency who received the grant, a larger grant for a lot of projects. Arroyo Seco Foundation worked with the City of Pasadena, primarily with Public Works and PWP, to materialize about $3.2 million grant for this project. This project then eventually morphed into a different form, and in 2008, 2009, or 2009 actually, when the station fire occurred, it changed the geographic area in that area. And this project took more concrete form, and on the basis of that was the initial study and mitigated negative declaration was done. Going forward now, I went along with the staff last week to see the site, and the site is now different than it was 2 years ago. Some of the features, the physical features and the geographic features have changed. Some of the structures that PWP had have actually sustained more damage. It's just the way the stream flows as the heavy storms occur. And we think going forward, we need to reevaluate the project, rescope the project, and do the EIR, which is the requirement that the judge has indicated. But that's going to take a long time. EIR in this process is going to take approximately 2 years because some of the seasonal studies needs to be done. Coupled with that, the necessary component of this project without which the project cannot really proceed is the permit from the Fish and Wildlife. So the staff has been working with Fish and Wildlife all along, and they have realized that there's some needs of studies and hydrogeological studies need to be done to satisfy the permit needs. That's where the project is today. In the meanwhile, we believe after the EIR is done, we would have gone way past the date when the grant would be available. So it's unfortunate that we would lose the grant. We have received approximately $500,000 from the grant money so far. We think with the ongoing work, primarily related to bridges, that the judge has allowed to proceed, we would be able to receive approximately $1 or $1.1 million total from the grant, but there will be no further money available. Therefore, you would see in the agenda report, we do state that there is no funding available for the recreational facilities at this time. The recreational facilities are interconnected by way of design. The sediment that would have come out of the percolation ponds would have been used to pave the road and elevate the level of the recreational or parking area, which is not possible right now. So I want to once again acknowledge the role that Arroyo Seco Foundation has played in this project, and we look forward to working with them and the other stakeholders going forward. So, yeah, Elisa Ventura would make the presentation.
Actually, Bawa, Teresa Fuentes is going to start the public hearing with some of the legal issues first.
Good evening. I'd like to begin to set the stage a little bit for why we are here tonight. As Bawa indicated, you can go to the first slide, we've had quite a history with this project, not only in the design of the project and the environmental review process, but then, as you'll see on the screen before you, a lengthy administrative process before the city, starting with approval by a hearing officer, appeal, and approval by the BZA, appeal and approval by the City Council, and then subsequent to that, further litigation. You can go to the next slide. In the court. And the litigation was extensive and took some time to resolve. The final result of the litigation was, in the first instance, of the 5 causes of action, 5 arguments made by the opposition in the CEQA lawsuit, the city prevailed on 4, lost on 1. However, under CEQA, that is a loss. So we therefore had to rescind our approvals of parts of the project. The city then brought action, or in further proceedings in that lawsuit, tried to narrow the scope of the project that was invalidated, and we were successful. But again, as Mr. Bawa pointed out, the heart of the water component of the project is the portion that the court found invalid. So before you tonight is the next necessary step in the litigation, which is invalidating approval of the CUP, the conditional use permit, and the mitigated neg deck as applied to those portions of the project that the court would not allow to move forward. Assuming the council takes this action, the next step in the litigation would be to file a return on the writ of mandate and complete this litigation. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Elisa to kind of go through the elements of the project.
Thank you, Teresa.
Don't mind. If you like, we can go through the whole presentation, but I gave you an overview of the major components of this.
The way here is that we've had an unfavorable piece of litigation. We need to comply with the order of the court and modify the environmental findings on this project. The project cannot proceed. No aspect of the project can proceed as I understand it. Neither the water part of it nor the recreation part of it right now. And after we take this action and clean up the environmental record, the department will have to evaluate how we want to proceed, if we want to proceed with any aspect of the project, but nothing's going to happen until additional environmental work is done, right?
That's correct.
So I think we can hold off on the presentation unless there are questions about that, but we do have a speaker card. Let's hear from Tim. Yeah, we'll do that, but let's hear from Mr. Brick.
Mr. Tim Brick.
Good evening. I'm here to support your action this evening. I think it's the only course at this point in order to move forward with the city's goals. I did want to clarify a few things with regard to the role and the goals of the Arroyo Seco Foundation with regard to this project. We began 10 years ago really working through the county and the state's integrated regional water management program. And this grant came out of that program and was eventually funded. In 2008, we actually retained an engineering firm to do the preliminary conceptual approach to this. Then the station fire came, and other elements were added in by Water and Power. When the grant was submitted in 2010, the Arroyo Seco Foundation was the sole applicant on the grant, although we did work with Water and Power and with Public Works in framing the program. But we decided eventually to agree to allow, because the scope of the project was much larger than was originally anticipated, we decided it was appropriate to allow the Water and Power Department to administer the project. So our goal in doing that was because we wanted to, we really had two goals. And the first goal was to expand local water resources, a goal that is very important all across Southern California. We need to do what we can to capture more stormwater and to replenish the groundwater basins, and we view this as a project that would help do that. But the second goal was also because we wanted to provide some environmental improvements to the way the city diverts water from the stream. Because the way you divert water from the stream at this point sucks up fish when there are fish in the area and has detrimental impacts on habitat through the area, and is destructive. And so our goal was to try to come up with some changes in the way that system would work and to eliminate some of the outdated structures that are in the immediate area above the city's diversion that are just remnant facilities of old experiments that didn't work. So it's unfortunate that apparently it appears that most of the grant will be forfeited. This is a case that we did have the City Council approve the program and the participation of the Arroyo Seco Foundation. We had a contract with the city in order to do outreach and planning services from 2012 to 2015. And it's our nursery, for instance, came as a result of this project towards the end of the project. But I certainly hope that as the city moves ahead on this project, that the goal of environmental enhancements is not missed and does not become a secondary aspect of the program. And I have to say from the write-up doesn't talk about environmental enhancements as part of this project, and that's unfortunate. It talks about recreational enhancements, but the heart of the environmental enhancements, including habitat restoration and other important steps with regard to how fish are handled and such, are not involved in it. So we urge the city to move ahead. You need to move ahead and do the full environmental impact report on the water diversion element. But it is clear that a basic decision, a serious mistake was made in the decision by city officials not to seek a full environmental impact report on this program in the beginning. And as a matter of fact, we participated fully in the planning process. I sat in on the meetings at which that decision was made, and we took the position that if there was any question about whether an environmental impact report was appropriate, then we should do a full environmental impact report. That failure really is going to extend the life of the construction of this project by 4 or 5 years. It was a very severe failure. and needs to be acknowledged as such. So our plea to you is don't abandon the original environmental goals of this project. The city and all of Southern California really needs to approach projects like this in a more rounded way that includes environmental enhancements and protecting the sensitive ecosystems that we take water from. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. That completes public comment on this item.
Ms. McCaustin?
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is a very specific action we're taking tonight, and it's required by the lawsuit. And as is on the screen, it's the action is to rescind the approval of the CUP and the initial study and mitigated negative deck for the project. And the CUP and the mitigated negative deck for the remaining elements will stay in place. As Tim pointed out, we need to move forward, and as Bawa pointed out, we need to move forward with a lot of water projects, and I consider this the first step. We have to get this behind us so we can move forward to design a new project and develop an EIR. And with that, Mayor, I move the staff recommendation.
Well, this is a public hearing, so we
move
need to close the public
the
hearing.
public hearing.
Second for that?
And
Any objection to closing the public hearing?
and
Now,
move
Ms.
the
McCaustin.
staff recommendation.
Second. All right,
Just,
Mr. Hampton, please.
Like to ask if this action would have any impact on the nursery and the benefits that the Hahamunga Nursery is actually doing there in Hahamunga Park.
No, that's a separate lease agreement between the city and the nursery.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure but yeah, I think that the public speaker was correct that it would have probably been beneficial if we would have went out for EIR in the beginning. Unfortunately, I wasn't a council member at the time, and I guess it was great direction, and neither was. But I think that we're going to right our wrongs, and from here on out for our projects, hopefully that's the goal.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. There is no soft shoeing around the reality that this is a real setback for us, both from a water reclamation point of view, an environmental point of view, and a recreation point of view. It's a three-way loss. But we'll fix this and then move ahead. Are there any objections to the motion? The motion is adopted. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Brick.